It's the Commish.
But when it looks like you're looking at the screen, where are you looking? Up there or at the screen, really?
Radio show. Radio show. What's
Roll
the
two cameras on this.
Commish? Radio show. Radio show. What's the Commish? Radio show. Radio show. I see you.
Delayed or
What's
crazy.
up, Commish? What's going on? Miss Paula Jam, the fashionista. Okay.
Said I don't have time to do
And I'm Young Strip on there, man. Young Strip, nice. The Commish. Radio show. Radio show. What's the Commish? Tune in.
I know you're gonna dig this.
The Commish Radio Show back again. You know what? You thought it was Saturday, but guess what? We are here on Tuesday in an abbreviated version. As you know, we normally are on the air between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock on Saturdays. Wait a minute, hold on. How many shows I've had? 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Saturdays. 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Saturdays. And 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock on the simulcast, which is on BPEN, Black Professional Entertainment Network. So I was correct. I was just incorrect on telling you how to reach us. You can also reach us on Facebook, which you're doing right now, and also on Twitter and Instagram, where you can follow me as Ed Grade 1906. But enough of all of that. We are here today again because we just got out of line, again witnessing democracy on the march. Democracy on the march. It was a stunning display of democracy yesterday as we set a lot of records, it seems like, in making sure we got people out to the polls. And we want you to continue to go out to the polls. Tip O'Neill, the former Speaker of the House, once said that all politics is local. All politics is local, and that is indeed the case. When we talk about politics, whether or not we're talking about Mr. Trump in the White House or Ted Cruz or Beto or O'Rourke, well, when it comes down to it, what affects us most is what happens down the street. What happens down the street, whether or not you're running for school board or whether or not you're running for city council or whether or not you're trying to put a petition out, as they're doing now in Grand Prairie, to have legalized alcohol, liquor, that is, liquor stores. That's what they get ready to do. They get ready to vote on that. Put a petition for that. They're trying to compete with Arlington, obviously. Obviously.
It's a moneymaker.
In regards to Arlington, we have one of the people in Arlington that is well known in the community. Her family is well known in the community. It's Miss Krystal James, who is the granddaughter of Mayor Elzio, former mayor of Arlington, Texas. A great man. I've known him for years. He helped me when I was running for office in Arlington, Texas. I bet you didn't know that, right? I ran for office in Arlington, Texas on the Arlington School Board. But that was years ago. But today, right now, it's another campaign that's going on, and Krystal James is here to talk about term limits. There is not a petition. We went past a petition. It's on the ballot.
It's a proposition on the ballot.
Proposition on the ballot. So they went through the whole process of getting a petition, got the right number of people to sign the petition, and from that point, it gets placed on the ballot. So now it's on the ballot as a proposition. So how you doing?
Pretty good. Moving and shaking in Arlington and looking for a few things to actually pass proposition-wise. JPS, on Tarrant County side, has an $800 million bond package. It's going to provide needed improvements, mental health hospital, new neighborhood clinics, and that's Tarrant County Proposition A. We want that to pass. And then City of Arlington has 4 other propositions, A, B, C, and D. And it's for streets and sidewalks, police and fire, infrastructure, and just basic maintenance. They do one about every 4 years. But this Proposition E is different. It is the work of one single citizen who did do the work and got 11,000 signatures, 11,000 certified signatures to get this on the ballot. And it's a term limit proposal. What's interesting about it, Ed, is that it is the most restrictive term limit ever proposed in the nation.
Now, how so?
In that it has 2 terms that you can serve for life, 2 3-year terms as city council person or mayor. And after that, you can run no more. Additionally, it's retroactive, so it goes and sweeps everyone with experience on the council currently. And I have to get the names right. It takes out, first of all, our only sitting African-American city council person, Michael Glaspie, in May of 2019, along with Catherine Wildman and Lana Wolf. And then takes out in May 2020, Sherry Capehart and Robert Shepard. But it's really not about people. It's not about people. I think that's why some people are voting for it, is because they're ready for what they term as career politicians to get on out. A lot of those people have served over 10 years, and I believe together they've served 16 years on the council, some of them. So the people that are for this proposition, the person who authored it has a pretty deep political personal grudge, but it's on the ballot.
Now, it's on the ballot now, and you mentioned quite a few people that it would take off. So it would basically revolutionize who was on the city council and just basically remove them. Who is this person that started the ballot, the proposition?
His name is Zach Maxwell, and he runs a newspaper, a digital newspaper actually, called the Arlington Voice. And I know him to be just quite contrary, with a lot of grudges, and as actually a known racist that has a lot of issues with African Americans that protest and march, specifically the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay, you gave me this here, and it says, this is something that says when Black Lives Matter thugs in Arlington are saying stupid. Can't say that word. It's one of those words you can't say on there. Like, do away with grand juries. It makes it kind of hard to believe there's much going on upstairs.
It goes further on to say that if you turn off food stamps and unemployment, the people wouldn't have time to march because they'd have to go get a job. All these Black Lives Matter.
And he is the author of the Arlington Term Limits Proposition E?
He is the author of it, him and a motley crew that have gotten it together, but it is legitimately on the ballot. And what he did tap into was a sentiment in Arlington with 11,000 voters that perhaps term limits is something that needs to be considered. This proposal, however, is far too restrictive.
Well, being restrictive as it is, and you mentioned the fact about this individual being, you said he was racist. I don't know this guy.
Right.
But from what you just gave me, it doesn't seem like I would be sending them one of my Christmas cards, or for that matter, a Kwanzaa card either. But that being said, though, that the term limits is also supported by, if I'm not mistaken again, the Arlington NAACP.
Absolutely. They jumped on the bandwagon as soon as it was brought to the city and as soon as it became an issue. And they are absolutely for it. And without putting words in their mouth, I believe the statement says that they believe it will create opportunity for new leadership, diverse leadership, and it gets rid of quote-unquote career politicians. I don't want to make their point for them, but there's some legitimacy to considering term limits.
Well, your grandfather ran for office, and he ran for office in city council, legendary, I may add, and I just want to say that. Anytime I speak of him, I put that there as well.
Thank you.
But when it came to him running for office, he served his terms and he left.
He served 13 years.
13 years, but
he
not
served at large.
At large.
As city council. Then when we got single member districts, which we can talk about that and the promise of diversity that it brought.
And you still got one.
And we still just only have one African American, so it did not bring the diversity.
That seems to be, that's the deal that you have on the city council in Arlington itself, and you only have one. How many do you have on the school board?
One.
One. Okay. That's what I thought.
One seems to be the magic number.
Because when I was running, I would have been 2. And that's the
Well, they
reason
couldn't
why
have-
I
you
didn't
couldn't
get
allow
elected,
that,
because
right.
would have been 2. So that explains nothing has changed in Arlington politics since I attempted to be number 2 in 1996. But now as we progress to 2018, and we still have the 1 that's there, this proposal would take away.
It would
that
create
one.
open seats, and the notion is that with open seats you don't have the burden of an incumbent to overcome, and it should make it easier for a fresh, unknown member of known establishment to be elected. Well, it does not solve the problem of once you create that open seat, who's coming to vote? The issue is the low voter turnout and voter apathy. In Arlington in May, 6,000 people can decide who becomes your next city council person. So the issue is once you create these open seats and you find a minority to run, someone that's credible that the NAACP may back, if you can't bring people out to vote, you still have a problem. Because from what I can see, the people that they term as the establishment are playing chess, not checkers. They've never been playing checkers. And where you may replace those names, they probably have their great-grandchildren ready to run for office and step in those seats.
Now, when we're speaking of this campaign, this proposition, shall I say, the proposition that currently exists, it's gotten a lot of support.
It has.
The Police and Firefighters Association.
One of the police associations and one of the fire associations have definitely supported it. And nationwide, I think people are looking at term limits as a solution to the corruption and things that they see in big politics. You brought up a quote by Tip O'Neill that all politics is local. And one of the things that you and I know is that there really aren't local career politicians in Arlington because it's a volunteer position. There's no salary. There's no compensation. There's no driver and vehicle like Mayor Price has in Fort Worth. There is simply an opportunity to serve. What I know watching my grandfather and other people that have served is truly it's a sacrifice of time, sacrifice of money, personal donations, and the idea that people just sit in office forever would bother me if that were the case.
Well, it seems like they're sitting in office in there now.
Except that they're up for re-election every 2 years. They're up for re-election, and I think it's 3 years. They're up for re-election, and they are term limited by the number of times that voters keep re-electing them. So it seems to me the solution would be, if I were the NAACP, would be to get my numbers up to run a candidate that could win.
Are you a member of the NAACP?
I am not a member of the Arlington, Texas NAACP.
Oh, then that explains why you and the NAACP are at odds.
We are not at odds in that they're an organization and I'm an individual. I disagree with them on one issue, but I've moderated several of their campaign forums, and I'm very supportive of their campaign really against the police department and this shooting with O'Shea Terry. I agree with a lot of the things the NAACP are doing. What I cannot get on board with, I think I went to Howard University, where Black thought and Black thought leadership is very diverse. There's a whole diaspora of opinions, and we can disagree on one issue and still stay together. It seems with this chapter, if you disagree, you're automatically called paid and played, a coon and Uncle Tom, and being accused of being in the mayor's pocket. And I don't play those type of politics. I've always been an independent thinker. And one issue is nothing to fall out over.
So you agree with them on a lot of issues, but just not this one at all?
Just not this one, and not the tactic. Again, I think the energy should be put into registering votes and getting your own membership up.
Well,
I think the NAACP has about 83 members.
well, the politics aside, the NAACP aside, that this is endorsed by the police and fire associations. Police and fire associations are pretty well tied in with city establishment.
generally, what's happening right now, I wasn't aware of the police endorsement, but the firemen are totally at odds with their chief right now. And so there's a pull between the fire chief and his rank and file. So the rank and file firefighters association, we have issues with staffing, of course, compensation, their pension, are using, I don't know what, they are supporting Zach as a way to not support the leadership. They feel like the leadership's not supporting them.
The campaign, how, I keep calling it a campaign.
It is.
The proposition. It's on the ballot, but it's way down at the bottom.
It's the last thing you will do as a voter. And unfortunately, we got a few voters out of the booths yesterday that voted straight ticket and missed the propositions. So if you vote straight ticket, you need to scroll through your whole ballot in Tarrant, in every county. And I'm a proponent of not voting a straight ticket. Even if you vote for only one party, you should go and check each person's name to make sure that your vote has gone in each race. But they have missed the propositions. So yes, Proposition E is the very last thing on the ballot.
Well, I don't vote in Tarrant County, I vote in Dallas County. Which page is that on?
I believe it's the 4th.
Oh, you don't have like 7 pages like I have in Tarrant County.
I don't think it's 7. No, mine isn't 7. Mine wasn't 7.
So you have to go through 4 pages and then it's the last one.
Right. And it's the last thing. There's the Tarrant County proposition, the JPS bond. Then there's 4 others, and then Proposition E.
So now, regarding this proposition and how it's progressing, are there any other people? Now, this is who is supported the proposition. Who is supporting keeping things the way they are?
Well, first of all, Mayor LZ Odom is against Proposition E. He is not against term limits per se, but would like to see a more reasonable proposal that could include laying off for a term, like in Dallas, where city council, you have to lay off for a term after 3 terms in office, then you can run again. He'd like to see a citizen committee come up with terms and a plan that may work. And the mayor and leadership has committed to a citizen committee, not one individual with an axe to grind to bring forth this proposal. And they'll bring it forward in May. This changes the city charter.
Now, Arlington, everyone in Arlington, the politics in Arlington.
It's a strange bear.
I was going to say that, but it appears that when it comes to politics in Arlington, you have a lot of people who drive and push the envelope, such as with the red light camera.
Mm-hmm.
And you got that thrown out, and now this. What draws people to Arlington to be aggressive in it? I couldn't think of a better word than that. It's just very aggressive state of politics, and it's different.
I think in and of itself, the idea of a single individual who pounded the pavement and got 11,000 signatures to support a notion and followed the process and follows the process to get something on the ballot is a good thing, that we have a democracy that works, that can bring things to the issue in the forefront to be discussed. And I'm always in favor of anything that brings people aggressively or not to the political table. So many people say, I don't do politics, I don't vote, I don't get involved, it's too messy. So when people dig in and do the hard work, I respect that. So I'm glad that Arlington's a place that people challenge and that there are individual thinkers. I also hope that it's a place where we educate ourselves as voters and don't just jump on bandwagons. Because again, this is a strange pairing when you have someone who is against progressive Black Lives Matter movements, but yet has enjoined with the NAACP.
I would think the proper word, I was searching for that word, and then I looked at the internal ballot that was in my head, and libertarian. I believe that they're more, they're not Democrat, they're not Republican. more libertarian.
I don't know
Conservative
that
in
to be
some
true in
points.
Arlington, but it could be.
Conservative in some points, liberal in some aspects, and also from what I just saw here, that's absolutely this situation here it begs to say that they have received some allies. If you have someone who's anti-Black Lives Matter, but yet partners, if you will, it's their stance, their political stance is also supported by the NAACP. That you guys got a lot going on over there.
I think it is. I think it's a complex issue.
It's very complex.
And it's more complex than African Americans who don't agree with this proposal are somehow not black enough.
No, I never said
that. Well, it's been asserted that somehow we are not for black people. We have sold out in some way. And I think that's unfortunate. Like I said, going to Howard University, where people think and disagree.
So they said that directly about you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The president herself. Somehow I'm a sellout, or I think it was a hoe being pimped.
Okay. Well, I didn't quite expect to hear that today.
I didn't expect to hear it either, Ed.
You just come on my show saying
And just
okay.
tear it up. I'm sorry.
Now, I understand Reverend McKissick, Dwight McKissick, who's involved in this.
Dwight McKissick from Cornerstone, along with Kennedy Jones from Greater Community, along with Reverend Goins from Koinonia, along with several, Renee Hornbuckle, are all against Proposition E. And there'll be a mailer going out tomorrow, along with Mayor Odom on it and Councilman Glaspie, that talks about waiting for a more reasonable plan that is not totally against term limits, but against this proposition. I find it interesting, and I know you are a member of the Grand Prairie NAACP, correct?
No, I'm a member of the Dallas NAACP.
Dallas NAACP. I can't understand how a civil rights organization that when the Voting Rights Act was being considered in 1965 fought so hard for our right to vote, where fire hoses were turned on us, dogs were unleashed on us, we were threatened with our lives, now want to say here, we can't make it to the polls. Will you do our job for us and get rid of politicians we don't like?
Do you think that's honestly what they're saying? And I also like to send a shout out to the Tri-East NAACP, because I'm a member of that one as well. I don't want to exclude any membership of any NAACP members, and I see Hosea Fain is online as well. Good evening, shall I say. So back again to what we were talking about, the NAACP, the proposition. I would love to have them to appear on this show as well, to have a fair and balanced. Oh, wait a minute. That make it sound like I'm doing Fox. So let's just do a Commish.
I think it's a meatier discussion. I think the weightier discussion that I hope comes from this is how do you get people to the polls to vote their choice.
There should be a lot of people voting then. I mean, with the.
They don't come out in May to get rid of, because the overwhelming sentiment
But
says
it's on the ballot now. So the proposition's on the ballot
Correct.
now. So it'll pass. If it passes, they'll come out and vote.
So
I'm just saying it may. But if it don't.
If it passes, then we create open seats, and in theory, everyone's going to come out and elect this great new leadership. So that was the same thing back in, was it 11 years ago, when single member districts was argued about. The argument was, and it was the NAACP and every other organization for diversity, that with single member districts, you create opportunity for more representation by minorities. So there was an African American city council person on that council. They divided up the districts. And where were they? Not a single more African American was brought to the council. Not a Hispanic brought to the council. Not an Asian American brought to the council. I fear that the energy put in removing people could be placed in bringing voters out, because again, without that win number, you can clear out as many seats as you want. And if the establishment, which is this Illuminati level type of coalition, according to some, if they're serious about maintaining control in Arlington, what makes you think they don't have 6 other lineups ready to go and circulate them through. We've got to be smarter and more strategic and more engaged in this process. Term limits passes. We have 3 open seats in May. Who's running? Where are the African Americans that are poised to run?
Well, we've had an African American ran for office. I believe he lost by how many votes?
Well, he actually won the general election, I believe, by a few. Are you talking about Marvin
Right.
Sutton? The question may be, I think I may have asked the wrong question. Where are the African Americans to vote for him and support him? 6,000 folks, I think, and I would have to pull the numbers, but literally under 10,000 people decide elections in single member districts. My mother ran this past May, in an open seat, mind you, and didn't get the votes. There were some tactical things as well. She announced a little late, but she was fully qualified. And getting people out to support, pulling teeth. If there are 60,000+ registered African American voters in Arlington, if they don't come out now, I just don't understand how they're going to come out all of a sudden in droves in May. Because removing people doesn't automatically put people in place. So when you create these vacancies, who's going to elect someone, new thought? You may be new names. Who's going to elect new thought? And that's where I would like to see the NAACP and other organizations, Greek letter organizations, churches, put the effort in engagement, voting, serving, volunteering, because then you have a pipeline, right?
Now, speaking of Greek letter, and I'm going to ask you this, the president of the NAACP,
Yes.
and don't y'all belong to the same sorority?
Absolutely. We both belong to the same sorority, and we will continue to belong to the same sorority. And she may want to fall out with me, but I'm not falling out with her over one issue. This is just one issue.
So I'm just saying, in regards to Greek letter organizations and in Grand Prairie, for example, in Grand Prairie, when I had approached some city leaders in Grand Prairie regarding Greek letter organizations, they said they didn't understand the merit of it because they don't understand the fact that black Greek letter organizations, they do things when they leave college campuses.
Yeah.
Whereas other organizations,
It's over.
It's over with. It's over with.
No, it's quite a bond. It's quite, and you know, it's quite a lifelong bond, sorority membership for African Americans. So I don't take that lightly at all. However, I also believe that there's room for all ideas and all thoughts, and we can still be unified. I would never accuse anyone who thinks differently than me, anyone who takes a position other than me. I would never accuse them of somehow being a coon or played or in the mayor's pocket. They might just disagree and have a different thought.
You got an extra grind on that one, don't you?
It really did bother me. I have to admit that coming from very lively, engaged communities. I've lived in Kansas City, I've lived in Atlanta. Look at the mayor's race in Atlanta. Look at, and coming from Arlington, where there are diverse opinions. And then again, coming from Howard University, I don't like those old school tricks of trying to pigeonhole people because they think differently. I would hope that we could discuss the issues. What are the merits of the proposition? Agree or disagree without labeling and name calling. It's juvenile.
All right. Early voting locations.
Yes. South Services, they're currently open this week, 8 to 5. And there are 7, I believe. South Service Center, Tarrant County Sub Courthouse, the Junior League of Arlington, Bob Duncan Center, the LZ Odom Athletic Center, and TCC Southeast. And you'll see a very lively group of poll greeters. It is packed, and we are coming out to vote in record numbers. So if you make it to the bottom of the ballot, this is one to consider. This is definitely one to consider.
Okay, then you said all of those, and you didn't even look down at this at least one time.
did.
You did.
But I know him.
You know him. Okay, so let me ask you this. I'll read this portion. Early voting information.
Is this a quiz, Ed Gray?
No, I'm gonna ask you a quiz. And I'm gonna ask you this. October 22nd. I'm gonna give you the times, and this is what everyone should be listening to as well. The times. Monday through Friday, October 22nd through the 26th, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. On Saturday and Sunday, October 27th and 28th, it's 7 to 7 on Saturday. On Sunday, it's 11 to 4. Remember, you got to go to church, 11 to 4. And on October 29th through 31st, you ain't got to go, but that's the reason why they put it there, to be honest with you. October 29th through the 31st, Monday through Wednesday, it's 7 to 7. And we close out November 1st and November 2nd, which is 7 to 7. Now, have you voted?
No. I worked the polls yesterday, and it was an hour and a half wait, so I prayed that God would give me enough to wake up today and make it to vote. And I have not voted yet. So if you look up me in the Tarrant County voter database, I'm still unvoted, and it feels like being naked. I normally vote the first day.
So you one of those persons who call up your friends and everything and say you haven't voted?
No, I try. I do shame them on Facebook, but I don't call them up personally.
You know, that's one of those things that my wife had did before. She when Obama was running for president, she got everyone to vote and everything. She looked up relatives and said, "You haven't voted." "Yeah, I voted." "No, you didn't." Because
it's public record. I mean, you can see who's voting and not. But I don't want to look, because I will tell you, I remember being in high school during one of my grandfather's elections, and we ran a couple directories of things that we were members of to see who was even registered, and my heart broke that some people I was close to. No, it wasn't that they weren't voted. It was that they weren't registered. Because back then the technology wasn't there in real time to see who had voted, but the technology was there to see whether or not they were registered when you pulled that voter registration list. And I want to go back to this not being a personal issue. It's really about the merits of what's best for the city. And I don't think term limits is off the table. This proposal, though, seems to be quite restrictive. And I hope that we hold, if we defeat it, I hope we hold the Arlington leadership accountable for bringing back a sensible proposal, because you can't ignore the sentiment that people in the city want some sort of term limit.
Well, they do. And I can
that's
just
real.
say that being real as well. When you have people that have served on the city council, Reverend Glassby, for example, has been there since a long time.
And before that on the school board, a long time.
Right, a long time. And when you vote, where are you going to vote at?
LZ Odom.
That was a trick question. See, now that's what I was going to ask you about.
You know,
so how does it feel going to vote, and then the person that say, you got the same name of the building?
It really gives me great pause, not only to vote there, but every time I go to think what a blessing it is that the citizens of Arlington think enough of my grandfather's service to name a building after him. I think that's absolutely amazing. And, you know, I would really hope that the Arlington chapter of the NAACP would take some leadership in bringing a proposal forward. That's the thing that I think the media has played upon, is that somehow this is an NAACP-driven proposal. They had nothing to do with it. They didn't author it. They didn't beat the streets to get it passed. They didn't to get it on the ballot. They haven't done any. They've joined Zach's bandwagon to be a foot soldier for him. And it's too bad, because it's been a great issue for the Arlington NAACP to gather people, bring forward a sensible proposal, and pass it. That's leadership. That's leadership. And it would be a feather in their cap to bring forward something. I do respect the NAACP as a needed civil rights organization. And again, the Voting Rights Act, the voter suppression that the NAACP fights, making sure that voters are protected, making sure that voters can vote without being harassed. These are important things that they do. And it would seem that taking leadership in an issue like this would be natural.
That'll work. Well, we're about to close right now. Would like to go ahead and thank you for coming on the show again and give my regards to your grandfather. Like I said, legendary. We talked about Mayor Elsie Odom being the first African-American mayor in Arlington, Texas, and if I'm not mistaken, the first African-American city council member as well.
He was.
And also in Orange, Texas, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
That is true.
He was the first African American that's
to serve
Orange,
on a
Texas,
school board.
served in a school board, and that happened right after the 1965 Voting Rights Act. So he goes into the record books a lot in the state of Texas. Is when I say legendary, I say legendary. Then I went way back. I was 65.
You did. Now let me tell you a morsel. In 1967, I believe it was, my mother finished high school, and as a member of the board of trustees, my grandfather got to award my mother her high school diploma. So
work.
amazing.
That'll work.
Amazing.
Won't he do?
You won't he do it?
That's it. All right.
Vote no on Proposition ES.
All right, Commish Radio Show. We will be back again this Saturday. The Commish Radio Show. Thank you for tuning in and listening in. And don't forget to look on BPEN tomorrow. That's 30.8 on the DFW market area of obviously the Ed Gray Show. All right, we will see you guys later. Thank you again.
I'm Pastor Freddie Haynes. I listen to the Commish Show on the Fishbowl.